Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, in studio with co-host Jay Dash. Going to talk some Steeler football for you today, specifically Heath Miller and the tight end position moving forward, considering we have to say farewell to my favorite tight end of all time, Heath Miller.
I don't know if he's my favorite tight end of all time, but I definitely love the guy. And I was thinking about it. I always forget, was he drafted a year before Ben or a year after?
A year after.
Correct?
Yeah.
So his rookie season, they won the Super Bowl.
Correct.
Very nice. Way to start off a career, and he finished strong as well.
He had 39 catches and 459 yards in that rookie year. 6 touchdowns.
Not terrible, considering, not many tight ends come out and just kill it from day one.
Especially in the Steelers' offense.
Yeah, exactly.
But Heath ended up with 592 catches, 6,569 yards, and 45 touchdowns. Do you know he had an 87-yard touchdown catch?
I do remember something about that, yes.
Heath Miller rumbled 87 yards down the field for a touchdown. That was in his second year.
Probably not Hall of Fame worthy, but you got to love the guy.
Yeah, there's been a lot of debate, especially recently on Pittsburgh radio. Is he a Hall of Famer?
He's a Pittsburgh Hall of Famer.
I heard that he's 12th on the yardage list for tight ends all time. Now, the number is obviously skewed because tight ends are starting now more and more to get yards.
Right.
But I've heard that he deserves no consideration at all. I think he deserves some consideration. Do I think he's a Hall of Famer? He's probably not going to get in.
I'd like to see how many tight ends are actually in the Hall of Fame, because if I had to guess right now, I would say not very many. It really got to be those guys that step up and have huge careers.
People like Ditka.
Yeah.
And now Heath has 2 Super Bowls to his resume. So
one loss.
So, that's got to help him. Maybe in a weak year he might squeak in, or maybe like a veteran committee, later on in life. You can be voted in by some of these older guys, but
I just think there's
tough.
Too many Steelers in already, and there's too many good Steelers that should be picked over them that have played on these teams over the past decade or so.
I swear I heard between players, coaches, and front office, there's 23 Pittsburgh Steelers in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think they have their own section.
It's ridiculous.
Believe it. There should be a couple more guys that we've seen play in our lifetime here as well.
So what do the Steelers do at this point now? You have Jesse James drafted last year. He's a bigger guy, 6'7", 261. His skill set is similar to that of Heath Miller, but he's obviously not as ready to play as what Heath was last year, even though he's a little more athletic than Heath is currently. But is his blocking good enough to be an everyday starter for the Steelers, or do they need to look to free agency to try to help out for at least a year or two?
Well, from my understanding, last year, no, his blocking wasn't good enough. You need an improvement from that. But from what I understand is he is improving, and they believe he can become that blocker. So if that happens, I'm totally comfortable with Jesse James as being my number 1 tight end if he can just block.
All he's got to do is block, and you're good with it.
Well, I think I've seen from him he can catch, and he didn't do anything huge this season. I think he had maybe a 2-point conversion, a couple catches for a first down here and there. But I think I've seen enough out of him where I believe in him in the receiving game.
He had a touchdown in the Bengals playoff game, didn't he?
Touchdown? I think it was a 2-point conversion, wasn't it?
Maybe.
I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't remember.
It was too far away to remember that much.
Yeah, season's over. Who cares?
I guess I want to say not as confident as you are in James, but I'm not as down on him as a lot of other people are. I hear a lot of people saying they need to go into the draft. We'll touch a little bit on that here later in the segment, but there's only 1 or 2 guys really projected in the top part of the draft, first, second round, that could make an impact right now. And Pittsburgh needs too much work on the defense to be worrying about drafting a tight end in the first round right now. You got to go defensive back, defensive line, or, corner safety, whatever you want to call it.
From what I've been hearing, I guess it's plausible that they could go tight end in the first round, but I agree. I just don't want to see it.
I think they'd be better off with some free agents. I listed 10 guys here. Some of them will cost a lot of money, so they're kind of, not really feasible for the Steelers. They're not going to get as much as they paid last year. But a free agent makes more sense to me because you're not going to draft another 5th-round pick to start ahead of James. So that just makes no sense. You might draft for the future depth of the position, but you're not drafting somebody this year. So it's either going to be Jesse James or it's going to be a free agent. And the first guy we have on here is kind of a wish list guy, Antonio Gates. He is 35 years old, so he's not going to get a long contract. He had an $8.3 million cap hit last year, so that's way out of the realm. That's definitely going to go down. You'll probably see it be around $4 or $5 million, I would guess. But he had 56 catches last year, 630 yards and 5 touchdowns in limited play. He was hurt early part of the season.
Wasn't he suspended for 4 games?
Oh, that's what it was. He was suspended for 4 games.
Yeah, he was suspended. When he came back, he looked like one of the top 3 tight ends in football for the first 1 or 2 games, and then he... injuries with Antonio Gates, it happens. He sort of tailed off towards the end of the season. Not completely his fault either. The San Diego Chargers
collapsed.
They were horrible. When Keenan Allen went down, that really hurt their passing game as well. They didn't really have any other receivers out there, so all he had to do was look Antonio Gates' way on the defensive side, double cover him, do whatever. But I don't know. I'd love to have Antonio Gates in here, but I don't really think that's a real possibility.
I agree. I don't think it'll happen. It'd be nice. He could learn... He could teach James a little bit about the passing game. Not that Heath was bad in that or anything, but Antonio Gates was the guy with no football knowledge, really, and just used his body to shield defenders and make big plays, and he did it for most of his career. But at 35 years old...
Yeah, I'm interested to see where Gates does go, though.
Maybe he signs with the LA Rams because they're losing Jared Cook, the next guy on our list.
He'll probably sign with the Patriots.
He could. Jared Cook's 28 years old, a little younger than Gates. He also carried an $8.3 million cap hit last year for 39 catches, 481 yards, and 0 touchdowns. But the passing game in L.A., St. Louis, whatever you want to call it, they were St. Louis last year, L.A. this year, it was just terrible. I mean, when Nick Foles gets benched for Case Keenum, I'm not hating on Case Keenum. I think he could be a serviceable guy, but neither one of those guys are star quarterbacks. It was a bad deal for the Rams to even give the amount of money they gave to Jared Cook, knowing that they weren't going to have much of a passing game. So.
When Jared Cook was signed, that he was actually one of the top 5 tight ends in football. Now, he's probably not that. I mean, he could be, but I was actually talking to my brother about this because I did hear that Jared Cook is someone that the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at. Now, he's not going to make the money that he made last year, obviously, but he's never really had a quarterback. Vince Young, I think, was his quarterback at one time. He's never had a good quarterback. I mean, you give him Big Ben, and he'll kill those numbers he put up last year.
Oh, believe it. He'll definitely dwarf anybody's numbers on this list if you give him Big Ben. Roethlisberger knows how to find a tight end that can work well in space, and Jared Cook's a big guy. So the limited production from him last year will hurt him but help a team because it's going to drive his price down, and it's going to help a team be able to afford him. At $3 million a year, even $5 million a year, if you're only taking him for 1 year, maybe 2 years, I might honestly think about
I'd have
Jared
to believe.
Cook.
What was it, 8.3?
Yeah.
I'd think it would at least have to be cut in half because, like I said, he was one of the top tight ends when he signed his last contract. And now, I mean, you could argue he's not even a top 10 tight end.
Believe it.
Although I think he could put up top 10 numbers if you give him the right quarterback.
What about our next guy, Mercedes Lewis? He's an older guy from Jacksonville at 31 years old. He's always been that guy, to me, that was pretty good, but never great. He had a couple, pretty good seasons, but they never really had a quarterback down there in Jacksonville to help him out. He made $3.85 million last year. That's a manageable cap hit. He did only have 16 receptions for 226 yards, but Julius Thomas took over after his suspension or injury or whatever he was out from at the beginning of the year. He's obviously the tight end of the future, so they're not going to re-sign him. He's a guy you could seriously get on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal if you really believed in James and just wanted an insurance policy in case James got hurt or didn't completely pan out. He's probably the most affordable guy on this list that could still give you 1 season.
Yeah, and I'd be fine with Mercedes Lewis. I mean, he's not a huge name or anything, not a guy that put up huge numbers at any point. I mean, he had some good seasons here and there, and like you said, with some bad quarterbacks. So Mercedes Lewis, I mean, I always liked that guy.
He moves around, and his problem has always been trying to stay healthy. He gets hit. He's a tall guy. He gets hit low a lot. I mean, it's going to hurt Gronk later in his career, too. He already has knee issues. So that was his biggest problem. But again, if you're just bringing him in to be a solid number 2, you have Matt Spaeth on the team right now and Jesse James, but Spaeth can't catch a cold. Another guy that's out there, a former Cincinnati Bengal and now a former Arizona Cardinal, Jermaine Gresham. He's 27 years old. He counted $3.1 million last year against the cap. Limited play. He had some injury issues coming into the season, and then I think he was actually signed late. I don't even know if he was on the day one roster. He caught 18 balls, 223 yards, and 1 touchdown, so not great numbers out of him. But you've seen him have some big years in Cincinnati before they drafted Tyler Eifert. And he's a guy who could give you the plays in the passing game that you're losing from Heath Miller, but he never was the greatest blocker. So he is a long shot, I think, on this list, but
he's inconsistent, too. I never liked this guy. I mean, he'd have games where he'd have 10 catches, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then you wouldn't hear from him for 4 weeks. So, yeah. I don't know. Jermaine Gresham, Jermaine Gresham, he's not a player I would choose from this list.
We'll move on to the next guy since you think he's garbage. This guy's even more garbage, and I kind of just put him on there so we could make fun of him. Vernon Davis. I mean, he's really fallen off the last 2 years of his career. He got traded from San Francisco to Denver last year. I thought that was going to be at least a small resurrection for him, and he'd get back into the mix with Peyton Manning's noodle arm. You think he'd be looking to dump off to the tight end a lot. Davis virtually did nothing for them. He carried a $2.4 million cap hit.
I forget, late in the season, or I think it was late in the season. It might have been in the playoffs, but he had a huge drop, too, I remember, that pretty much cost him a game.
And we only caught 20 passes for 201 yards, so he looks like he dropped a lot of passes.
Well, he does drop a lot of passes. I mean, he's a freak of nature, but he's getting old. I don't want him either.
Bad
but I tell
attitude.
you what, if the Steelers did sign him, I'd be like, hey, you know what? They got Vernon Davis at tight end. You know what I mean?
He had a couple beast years with Kaepernick. He actually had 1 or 2 good years, I think, with Alex Smith. He always performed well in the playoffs. I'll give him that. Whenever San Francisco did make it, he stepped up and had some big games in the playoffs.
I mean, at one point, he was the best tight end in football for one season.
He was really, really fast, but now at 32 years old, I think the wheels have fallen off. He's just done.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate if that's who they went with, because he'd be pretty cheap too. You'd have to believe that guy's going to be extremely cheap, to tell you the truth.
I mean, he only counted $2.4 million last year against the cap and then put up pathetic numbers, so he's not getting anything more than that. And I don't think anybody's going to give him more than a 1-year deal either.
No, not at that age. I mean, why would you? Obviously, Peyton Manning throws too much heat for him.
Believe it. This next guy is surprising, and is his production due to the system or the quarterback, or did he actually kind of have a career resurrection? Ben Watson, the tight end out of New Orleans. He started out as a New England Patriot early in his career.
Wasn't bad.
Had a lot of upside. People talked a lot about him, and then they drafted the murderer and Rob Gronkowski, and Ben Watson kind of fell by the wayside. He was eventually released. He kind of disappeared, but then he's had about, I think he played well last year.
Why do you think he disappeared? Who did he play for?
After the Patriots?
I can't remember if it was immediately after, but I know he played for this team.
The Browns, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You're right. So that's why he disappeared. So then he goes back to New Orleans. He had 74 catches last year for 825 yards and 6 touchdowns. He only carried a $1.9 million cap hit. He is a little old, but he is the epitome of stopgap insurance policy. You see he did it last year. So there's no reason to think he couldn't do it again, put in the right situation.
Well, he's not going to put up 800 yards in the system, obviously.
Not in the Steelers.
A lot of it had to do with the system he was in, definitely. But Ben Watson, I mean, he's always been a solid tight end in my mind. He never put up the huge numbers in New England. He never really put up huge numbers ever. Last year might have been his career year, really. But, yeah, I've always liked Ben Watson. He gets the job done in all areas.
A sleeper fantasy player last year.
Yeah. Halfway through the season, he stepped it up, I remember.
Believe it. But in the Steelers system, his 74 for 825 probably projects to around 50 for 600, just pretty much what Heath Miller had last year.
Yeah, 40 catches maybe, something like that, 40, 50.
If he would be the starter, obviously.
Right.
These next two guys we're going to talk about as a tandem. You love these guys. I think they're your favorite tight ends in the league.
Yeah.
Dwayne Allen and Coby Fleener. They combined last year for, 70 catches, for 600 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 54 catches for 491 yards and 3 touchdowns for Fleener, 16 catches, $109, and 1 touchdown for Allen. You think Allen is better than Fleener, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't have a lot of faith in either one of these guys. Are they a product of being there at the same time and nobody really being able to figure out how to use the one right? And, sometimes when you have two, you have none. Like when they say with quarterbacks, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. Were they hurting each other by both being, that top pedigree guy who just never kind of panned out?
Nah, I don't think so. Look, Dwayne Allen, he's definitely a red zone threat. He's not going to be a guy that gives you 10 catches a game or anything like that, but you can look his way in the red zone. Now, Kobe Fleener, he can't catch very well. He can't block very well. He makes stupid mistakes on the field. He's just a bad player with a lot of talent, so he still puts up some numbers here and there. But this guy could be a beast if he just wasn't a complete idiot. So I definitely...
Well, I'm sure he's pretty smart. He did go to Stanford.
Well, yeah. Who knows? I don't know how that happened. But look, Dwayne Allen all day. I would take Dwayne Allen in this offense for sure.
Well,
Kobe Fleener, I do not want any part of.
Allen's only 25 and Fleener's only 27.
Man, that surprises me. Allen's only 25?
He's probably coming off his rookie deal.
Wow.
Last year he made 1.7, Kobe made 1.69, so basically the same thing. Now there was a lot of quarterback trouble out in Indianapolis last year. Don't forget, Andrew Luck was out most of the year. Even when he played, he was playing pretty bad. You could tell he was playing hurt. So their numbers definitely are down because of that. One of them would have probably gotten closer to 1,000 yards had Luck played the whole season. I don't know which one. Which one do you think Indy would try to bring back?
I think they'd be smarter to go Dwayne Allen, but doesn't Andrew Luck have some kind of connection with Kobe Fleener?
They
or
played
something?
together in college, yeah.
So they'll probably go Fleener.
The last guy on the free agent list is my favorite of all of them, Ladarius Green out of San Diego. This guy's only 25 years old. He did get hurt at one point in the season last year, but he was playing really good. He had 37 receptions for 429 yards and 4 touchdowns. He didn't even cost $1 million, only $772,000 against the cap. Now, he's the one guy on the list whose number will go up. Maybe
Definitely.
Dwayne Allen and Kobe Fleener both go up too, somewhere around $3 million. But Ladarius Green is definitely going to get somewhere in like a 3-year, $15 million deal.
Maybe even more than that.
Yeah, like
Listen,
a
man,
4.25.
I've been talking with Darius Green up for 2 years now at least? Since he was a rookie, pretty much, I've been saying he's going to replace Antonio Gates, and I think the Chargers would be smart to find a way to bring this guy back, to tell you the truth. I think this guy can be an elite tight end if you just give him playing time. I mean, he was always behind Antonio Gates.
Yeah, this is still in February, folks, so a lot of these guys could still be re-signed by their team. The league year doesn't even start till March 9th, so some or all of these guys could be right back with the same team they came from.
Right, and
So-
I'd expect Ladarius Green to be a top priority for San Diego, actually.
You would think.
Because, I mean, they have no receivers out there outside of Keenan Allen. You've seen when he went down last year, they really had nothing else. Ladarius Green is a playmaker in the passing game.
You think they'd let Gates walk and keep Green, because Green is almost the new Gates. I mean, he's very similar in his playing style.
I mean, he might not be as good as Gates was over his career, but he's 10 years younger, so
Right.
why would you look at Antonio Gates right now?
Yeah, believe it. And I bet you Gates will end up making more, at least in his first year, than Green even does in his first year. Even with Green
Right.
being younger, Gates is somebody's going to take, a shot at that guy who's struggling at the tight end position and feels like that could really complete their offense.
Yeah, I think Ladarius Green's actually going to make a little bit too much money, though, for the Steelers to be able to sign him. I think he'll either go back to San Diego or somebody that really wants a tight end is going to pay that guy.
Now, as far as the draft goes, I'm looking at CBS.com's draft rankings right now. There's 3-4 guys that are projected in the possible 3rd round or sooner. Everybody after that, 4th, 5th, 6th round grades. The Steelers don't have a 5th or 6th round pick this year. They could pick up a compensatory 7th round pick for losing Bryce McCain before the 2015 season. So they might end up with 1 through 4 and then 3 7s. I doubt 1 through 4 you'll see them take a tight end unless they're not high on Jesse James, which I believe they are. So out of these bottom guys, I mean, I don't know a lot about any of these guys, but there are a couple with 7th round grades. You think they'll take a late 7th round flyer or just try to maybe do the undrafted free agent route if they're going to do a young guy?
You could definitely draft someone late in the draft if you think the guy has some upside, I guess. But, I mean, it's really hard to tell at this point what to do. I mean, like I said before, though, there is some talk that they are thinking about a tight end in the first round if one is there. And who knows then? I mean, from there, they could draft one in any round if they are even considering one in the first round. But the only first round is, what's his name, Henry or something?
Hunter Henry, yeah, I was just going to say. He's ranked 34th overall by
so it'd be kind of a reach, I think.
Right.
It's still a reach to me. I mean, he might, by the time the draft rolls around, maybe he's 25, and
Right.
it is smart. But I still think it would be a reach to go tight end at this point. You have a little something in Jesse James at least, something you could go a year with, I believe, instead of wasting a first-round pick here on a tight end when you really need help on the defensive side.
I would even be surprised, like I already said, if they go tight end 1 through 4 at all. I mean, we just need too much depth along the D-line and defensive backs, and maybe a little bit of O-line depth, depending on what happens with Ramon Foster and Kelvin Beachum.
Who knows, man? They could actually trade their first-round pick back a couple spots, maybe draft this guy if maybe move back to the top of the second round,
Right.
get a couple of these picks that they lost last season, get them back, and then you have a lot more to work with as well.
I mean, it's definitely a chance. I just don't think I've seen the Steelers trade back in a long time. They don't really move
it doesn't
around.
happen too often, but I mean, this is a good year for it considering what they had to do last year.
Right. But as far as the draft goes, it just, to me, doesn't offer any instant success. Even these guys like Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper, it's such a long shot. I'd rather sign a free agent and roll with James and whoever you decide to bring in. And, obviously keep space there for some depth.
I think Jared Cook would be a good fit. Obviously, I'm with you. I want Ladarius Green. I think that's asking a little bit too much.
Right.
And I think on the other side of it, Antonio Gates is asking a little bit too much as well. But Jared Cook, I think he's a real possibility.
He'd be a good fit, at least for a year or two. But that's it. Any questions or comments, fans? Anybody you think the Steelers should bring in? Hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube and click and subscribe. Steeler football for life. We love you, Heath.